My girlfriend said her job banned social media, then my friend found her secret Instagram. The clinking of silverware on my mother's fine china was the only sound in the room, a delicate, unnerving percussion accompanying the silent tension. It was the 6-month anniversary of my father's death, a milestone that felt both impossibly long and tragically short. My head was swimming, a thick, syrupy fog that had become my constant companion for the last several weeks. My fiancée, Clara, sat beside me, her hand a proprietary weight on my thigh. Across the table, my uncle Robert, the executor of my father's estate and a retired police detective, watched me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It was a mixture of concern and something sharper, something analytical. The terms of my inheritance were simple, and public knowledge within the family. Remain sober for 1 year following my father's passing, and the controlling shares of his company, my legacy, would be mine. Fail, and everything would be managed by a trust. With Clara, my devoted fiancée, appointed as its primary administrator. Clara squeezed my leg. "Are you all right, darling?" she murmured, her voice a perfect confection of sweet anxiety, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You look a little pale." I tried to focus on her face, but the edges were blurry, indistinct. The chandelier above us seemed to pulse with a sickly yellow light. I felt a wave of nausea, a familiar but unwelcome sensation that mimicked the hangovers of a life I'd fought tooth and nail to leave behind. I was 5 years sober, a fact that was my single greatest accomplishment. Yet in that moment, my body was betraying me, staging a phantom relapse that I couldn't explain. I felt dizzy, my thoughts sluggish and disconnected. It had started subtly a month or so after Dad died. Fatigue, confusion, moments of profound disorientation. Clara had attributed it to grief. Now, it was a constant state of being. "Just tired," I managed to say, the words feeling thick and foreign in my mouth. I took a sip of water, the glass trembling in my hand. My mother's gaze was sharp with worry. My sister, already convinced I was a ticking time bomb, looked on with a kind of grim satisfaction, as if her lowest expectations were finally being met. Clara's performance was masterful. She dabbed my forehead with a napkin, smoothed my hair back, and spoke to the family in a hushed, conspiratorial tone. "The pressure has been immense for him. Losing his father, the weight of the company. I've been so worried. He hasn't been sleeping." She was painting a picture for them, laying the groundwork for a narrative I was too weak to refute. The narrative of the grieving son, the recovering addict, cracking under the strain. It was the perfect, tragic story, and everyone was buying it. I excused myself, stumbling slightly as I pushed my chair back. In the hallway, I leaned against the cool wall, trying to get my bearings. The fog in my head was a physical presence, a suffocating blanket. From the dining room, I could hear Clara's voice, carrying clearly. "I just want to support him," she was saying, her tone laced with a theatrical sorrow. "But he's shutting me out. He's exhibiting all the old behaviors, the secrecy, the exhaustion. I'm scared he's using again, but I don't know how to help him without pushing him away." My blood ran cold. It wasn't a question. It was a diagnosis. She was planting a seed, a poisonous vine that would wrap around my reputation and choke it to death. In that moment, I hated her. It was a flash of pure, unadulterated loathing that cut through the chemical haze for just a second. A moment of startling clarity before the fog rolled back in. I didn't know how she was doing it, but I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this was her work. The next day, the true nature of her work was laid bare. My best friend Leo came over. He'd been my staunchest ally through recovery, the one person besides my sponsor who understood the daily battle. He'd never liked Clara, a fact he'd made clear with polite but firm distance. He found me on the couch, where I'd collapsed after the dinner, too drained to make it upstairs. He didn't say a word at first, just handed me a bottle of water and sat in the armchair opposite me, his phone in his hand. "I need to show you something," he said, his voice grim. "And you need to promise me you'll stay calm and just listen to what I have to say after you see it." I nodded, my head pounding. He turned the phone around. On the screen was an Instagram profile. The name was devoted to him, and the profile picture was a silhouette of a woman embracing a man. The bio read, "Walking the tightrope of loving an addict. My journey of strength, sorrow, and unwavering support. Codependency, recovery journey, addiction awareness." My stomach twisted. Leo scrolled through the pictures. There were dozens of them. Poetic shots of sunsets with long captions about her fear and loneliness. Selfies where she looked tearful and brave. And then I saw myself. A photo of me asleep on this very couch, taken from the doorway. The caption read, "The exhaustion is taking its toll on him. Found him like this again. My heart breaks knowing he's fighting a battle in secret and won't let me in. Praying for his strength. Jar relapse or sober life. Arin, the struggle is real." There were hundreds of comments, all from strangers, offering her sympathy, calling her a saint, an angel. They praised her for her loyalty, for standing by her man during his darkest days. She was building an army of supporters, a jury of strangers who had already convicted me. Leo kept scrolling, his face a mask of cold fury. He stopped on a post from 3 weeks prior. It was a picture of a steaming mug of tea. The caption was the confession, wrapped in the guise of therapeutic self-help. "He's been so agitated lately, the grief is manifesting as anxiety. My naturopath suggested a blend of chamomile chamomile and valerian root, a gentle herbal sedative to help soothe his nerves. I've been adding a few drops to his morning coffee and evening tea. It feels deceitful, but it's for his own good. I just want to keep him calm, to stop him from seeking that old, familiar poison. Sometimes love means making the hard choices for them. Tough love, herbal remedies, loving an addict. Leo looked up from the screen, his eyes locking onto mine. Naturopath, herbal sedative, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Mark, what has she been giving you? The world tilted on its axis. The fog in my brain wasn't grief. It wasn't a phantom relapse. It was poison. The dizziness, the confusion, the exhaustion, it was all manufactured. She had been drugging me for weeks, maybe months, meticulously documenting my decline for her secret audience while playing the role of the devoted caregiver to my family. Every concerned glance, every soothing word had been a lie, a calculated move in a game I didn't even know I was playing. I felt a surge of adrenaline so powerful it burned through the chemical haze. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt sharp, clear. The horror of the situation was a bucket of ice water, shocking me back to life. She was trying to have me declared incompetent. She was trying to steal my inheritance, my future, my very sanity. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. A terrifying calm settled over me. She thinks I'm weak, I said to Leo, my voice steady. She thinks I'm the same broken man I was 5 years ago. She's counting on me to fall apart, to drink myself into a stupor so she can prove herself right. Leo nodded slowly. So what do we do? I looked at the phone in his hand, at the digital trail of her sociopathy. We don't let her know that we know, I said. I'm going to play the part she's written for me. I'm the struggling addict. I'm confused and I'm scared. And while she's busy being the hero of her own story, we're going to burn her entire world to the ground. The first call I made was to my Uncle Robert. I met him at a diner halfway between our houses, a neutral ground. I had Leo send me screenshots of the entire Instagram profile before he deleted his trail. I sat in the vinyl booth, my hands shaking, and laid my phone on the table. Robert slid in opposite me, his detective's eyes missing nothing, my pallor, the tremor in my fingers. You look like hell, kid, he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. Clara called your mother this morning, said you had a rough night. I just pushed the phone across the table. Start from the beginning, I said. He scrolled, his expression hardening with every post. He read the captions, his lips a thin, hard line. When he got to the post about the herbal sedative, he put the phone down and looked at me, his gaze piercing. Have you been to a doctor? He asked. I shook my head. I thought it was just me. I thought the grief was breaking me. We're going to the hospital right now, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Not our family doctor. Somewhere she can't call ahead, can't spin a story. You're getting a full toxicology screen, blood and urine. We need to know what's in your system. Today, he was all business, the retired cop taking over. The fear I had been suppressing began to bubble up, but his calm, authoritative presence was an anchor. At the hospital, he handled everything. He spoke to the admitting doctor privately, explaining the situation in clipped, professional tones. They took me back immediately. As the nurse drew vial after vial of my blood, I felt a profound sense of violation, deeper than any needle could reach. Clara hadn't just deceived me. She had invaded my body, turning my own physiology into a weapon against me. While we waited for the initial results, Robert and I sat in the sterile waiting area. He had me write down everything I could remember, every instance of feeling foggy, every dizzy spell, every meal Clara had prepared for me, every cup of tea she had insisted I drink before bed. Details matter, Mark, he said, handing me a notepad. Dates, times, what you felt, what she said, create a timeline. Her words against yours is a toss-up, especially with your history. Her words against a calendar of documented symptoms and a toxicology report, that's a different story. So I wrote. I filled page after page, the act of writing solidifying the hazy memories, bringing the pattern of abuse into sharp, sickening focus. The gentle morning coffees that left me groggy all day. The calming evening teas that resulted in me sleeping for 12 hours and waking up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. It was all there. A systematic, meticulous campaign of poison. The call came 2 days later. It was Robert. You need to come to my house, and you need to pack a bag, he said. The line was crackling with suppressed fury. The talk screen came back. It wasn't chamomile, Mark. It was benzodiazepines, a significant amount. Specifically, a type that's commonly used to treat severe anxiety and panic disorders, but in unregulated doses it causes confusion, memory loss, and extreme drowsiness. You weren't being calmed. You were being sedated. Systematically. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the room spinning. Benzodiazepines. The word sounded clinical, cold, and utterly terrifying. She had been feeding me prescription anti-anxiety medication. She could have killed you, Mark, Robert said, his voice raw. An interaction, an overdose. She was playing God with your life. That night, I packed a duffel bag while Clara was out at her book club. My hands moved with a strange, detached precision. I took my laptop, my father's watch, a few changes of clothes. Every object in the apartment we shared felt tainted, part of a stage set for a play I hadn't known I was in. I looked at the framed photos on the wall. Us smiling in Paris, us laughing on a beach. It was all a lie. I wasn't a partner to her. I was a project, a mark. I left my key on the kitchen counter and walked out without a backward glance. Driving to my uncle's house felt like a jailbreak. For the first time in months, the fog in my head was gone, replaced by the cold, hard clarity of rage and purpose. The next morning, we met with a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Eleanor Vance, whom Robert trusted implicitly. I sat in her plush office, feeling out of place in my jeans and sweatshirt, and told her everything. I showed her the screenshots. I gave her my handwritten timeline. Robert presented the toxicology report. Eleanor listened without interruption, her steepled fingers resting on her chin. When I finished, she looked at me with a disconcerting intensity. "This is not just a civil matter of inheritance fraud," she said, her voice precise. "This is a criminal matter. Assault with a chemical substance, reckless endangerment, at a minimum. The Instagram profile is a confession, but more than that, it's a detailed record of premeditation. She documented her own crime, believing she was untouchable." Eleanor laid out the strategy. First, an emergency restraining order. We needed to legally bar Clara from contacting me or coming near me. Second, we would file a civil suit to have her removed as a potential administrator of the trust and to sue for damages. Third, and this was the most difficult part, we would take the evidence to the district attorney's office and press for criminal charges. "This will be a fight," Eleanor warned me. "She will try to destroy you. She will use your history of alcoholism as a weapon. She will paint you as an unstable, paranoid addict and herself as the victim. You need to be prepared for the ugliest battle of your life." I looked at my uncle, then back at her. "I've been in ugly battles before," I said. "I'm 5 years sober. I'm not the man she thinks I am." We began the painstaking process of building the case. I spent days with Eleanor and her paralegal, going over my timeline, cross-referencing it with Clara's posts. We downloaded every picture, every comment, every single piece of data from the Devoted to Him account before it inevitably disappeared. My friend Leo worked with a tech-savvy acquaintance to archive the entire page, preserving the metadata that would prove when each post was made. Simultaneously, I started therapy with a specialist in trauma and psychological abuse. My therapist, Dr. Anya Sharma, was the first person to give a name to what Clara had done: gaslighting. It was more than just lying. It was a deliberate campaign to make me doubt my own sanity, to erode my perception of reality until I was completely dependent on her interpretation of it. My support network became my lifeline. I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting every single day. I didn't share the details of what was happening, not in the big room, but I spoke about betrayal, about feeling unsafe in my own mind, about the terrifying temptation to numb the pain with the one thing that had almost destroyed me before. My sponsor, a grizzled old mechanic named Gus, would meet me for coffee afterward. He'd listen, his presence a steady, non-judgmental comfort. "You're walking through hell right now, kid," he told me one morning. "Just keep walking. Don't stop. Don't look back. And don't for 1 second believe the lies the devil is whispering in your ear. You know your truth. Hold on to it like a life raft." The restraining order was served to Clara at our apartment. According to the process server's report, she accepted the papers with a look of stunned, tearful confusion. That performance, however, lasted only as long as he was there. The retaliation was immediate and brutal. The Devoted to Him Instagram account vanished. In its place, a public Facebook post appeared on her personal page. It was a long, rambling essay about the heartbreak of loving an addict. She claimed I was in the throes of a severe relapse, suffering from paranoia and delusions. She wrote that my enabling uncle had kidnapped me and was trying to turn me against her to gain control of my father's money. She painted herself as the tragic heroine, fighting for the man she loved against a world that didn't understand. The post was shared dozens of times, mostly by her friends and our mutual acquaintances. My phone lit up with messages. Some were from people offering support, but many were accusatory. "How could you do this to her?" One message read. "Clara has been your rock." My own sister called me screaming. "You're throwing it all away. She's the only one who has ever truly stood by you, and you're treating her like a criminal because you can't handle the pressure of being sober." The words were like daggers, each one a testament to how successful Clara's campaign had been. She had spent years cultivating this image of the perfect, supportive partner, and it was now a nearly impenetrable shield. Then came the financial and emotional coercion. Clara's mother, a woman who had always looked at me with a thinly veiled disapproval, called my mother. She was hysterical. She wept. She pleaded. She threatened. She told my mother that Clara was a wreck, that I had broken her heart. Then came the offer. If I dropped this insane lawsuit and agreed to go to a rehab facility, one of their choosing, of course, they would forgive me. They would welcome me back. Clara would help me get better. It was a threat wrapped in the language of concern. They weren't offering peace. They were offering a gilded cage. They wanted me institutionalized, out of the way, where they could control the narrative and, ultimately, the money. The pressure from my own family was relentless. My mother, torn between her loyalty to me and the plausible, heartbreaking story Clara was selling, begged me to reconsider. "Maybe she was just trying to help Mark," she said during one tearful phone call. "Maybe she made a mistake. People make mistakes. Is it worth tearing the whole family apart over this?" The gaslighting was so effective. It was leaking out and infecting everyone around me. They wanted me to be the sick one. It was easier. The alternative, that the sweet, devoted woman they all adored, was a manipulative sociopath capable of systematic poisoning was too monstrous to contemplate. It was a lonely, terrifying place to be, knowing the truth while everyone around you is convinced you're insane. But every time I felt myself start to doubt, I would look at the toxicology report. The proof was in my blood. Eleanor Vance was my anchor in the storm. "This is a classic abuser's tactic," she explained in her calm, measured voice. "It's called DARVO: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. She denies what she did, attacks your credibility, and then reverses the roles, positioning herself as the true victim and you as the perpetrator. It's predictable, and we will dismantle it piece by piece." Her confidence was infectious. While Clara was waging a war in the court of public opinion, Eleanor was quietly building an unassailable fortress of evidence. We filed a motion to subpoena Clara's electronic devices, her laptop, her phone, her tablet. Her lawyer fought it, of course, claiming it was an invasion of privacy, a fishing expedition. But given the evidence from the now-deleted Instagram account, the judge granted our motion. The investigative process was agonizingly slow. Weeks turned into months. The civil suit was bogged down in pre-trial motions, and the district attorney's office was still reviewing the evidence for the criminal case. Clara, meanwhile, continued her campaign. She would accidentally show up at my regular coffee shop, looking wan and heartbroken. She sent gifts to my mother. She posted old, happy photos of us on her Facebook, with captions like, "Remembering the good times. I will never give up on you." Each post was a small, public torture, designed to keep me off balance. I had to block her and then block friends of hers who were sending me her posts. I felt like I was living under siege. Then we got the first major breakthrough. The forensic analysis of her laptop came back. The technicians had recovered deleted files, including her search history. For 3 months leading up to my father's death, she had been researching how to induce symptoms of alcohol withdrawal, odorless, tasteless sedatives, legal definition of mental incompetence in this state, how to become a legal guardian for an adult, and most damningly, a receipt from an online pharmacy in Cyprus for a bulk order of the exact benzodiazepine that had been found in my system. The herbal sedative story was a complete fabrication. This was premeditated, meticulously planned, and executed with chilling precision. The second breakthrough came from the analysis of her phone. They recovered deleted text messages between Clara and her mother. The conversation read like a villain's playbook. Her mother was not a passive enabler. She was an active co-conspirator. There were texts discussing dosage. "Just a little in his coffee, don't overdo it," her mother had written. "We need him foggy, not comatose." They talked about my inheritance, about the life they would have once they had control of the trust. "He'll be safely in a long-term care facility, and you'll be able to manage his affairs properly," her mother had texted. It's what his father would have wanted, for him to be taken care of. They had twisted their greed into a grotesque form of care, convincing themselves that their crime was an act of mercy. Armed with this new evidence, the district attorney's office moved forward. They convened a grand jury, and an indictment came down. Clara was formally charged with second-degree assault and reckless endangerment. The news sent a shockwave through my family. The narrative of Mark's tragic relapse was suddenly crumbling, replaced by a much darker, more horrifying reality. My sister called me for the first time in months, her voice small and shaken. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to believe it." The validation was welcome, but it was layered with the bitterness of what I had endured alone. The approach of the criminal trial was terrifying. Eleanor and the assistant district attorney, a man named Marcus Cole, prepped me for what was to come. "Her defense will be character assassination," Cole told me, his eyes serious. "They are going to dredge up every mistake you have ever made, every drunken night, every argument, every single lapse in judgment from your past. They will try to present you as a violent, unreliable drunk, and her as a terrified woman who acted in self-defense, trying to calm you down. Your only job on the stand is to tell the truth, simply, clearly, and without anger. Let the evidence speak for itself." My sessions with Dr. Sharma shifted focus. We worked on grounding techniques, ways to manage the emotional flooding that would inevitably come during cross-examination. She taught me to focus on my breathing, to feel my feet on the floor, to anchor myself in the present moment when the lawyers tried to drag me into the wreckage of my past. The day I walked into the courtroom, my heart was hammering against my ribs. Clara was already there, sitting at the defendant's table. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. She was dressed in a conservative gray suit, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked like a librarian, not a poisoner. When she saw me, she met my gaze and her eyes filled with tears. The performance never stopped. I sat with my uncle and Eleanor, took a deep breath, and focused on the worn wood grain of the prosecution's table in front of me. I would not let her get to me. I would not let her win. The trial was a blur of methodical, brutal detail. The prosecution started by presenting the toxicology report. A forensic toxicologist took the stand, explaining in dry, scientific terms how the levels of benzodiazepines in my blood would have caused severe cognitive impairment, confusion, and memory loss. He explained that the dosage, administered over a long period, could lead to dependency, organ damage, and in some cases, death. The words hung in the air, clinical and chilling. The jury listened, their faces impassive. Next, Marcus Cole presented the evidence from her laptop. The search search history was displayed on a large screen for the entire court to see. How to induce symptoms of alcohol withdrawal. Legal definition of mental incompetence. Each search query was a nail in her coffin. Then came the text messages. Cole read them aloud, his voice devoid of emotion. The casual cruelty of her conversations with her mother was laid bare. The plotting, the greed, the complete disregard for my life. As he read, I risked a glance at Clara. Her mask of fragile innocence was gone. Her face was pale, her expression tight with fury. Her mother, sitting in the front row, was openly weeping, but they didn't look like tears of remorse. They looked like the tears of someone who had been caught. The most powerful evidence was the Instagram account itself. The archived pages were entered into evidence. The jury saw the smiling, tearful selfies, read the sanctimonious captions about her unwavering support, and then they saw the picture of the mug of tea and her brazen confession about drugging me for my own good. The hypocrisy was staggering. When it was my turn to testify, I felt a strange sense of calm. I walked to the stand, took the oath, and sat down. I looked at the jury, at these 12 strangers who held my life, my truth, in their hands. I told them everything. I spoke about my alcoholism, my recovery, my love for my father. I described the fog, the confusion, the fear that I was losing my mind, that my sobriety was a lie. I spoke directly and honestly about my past, admitting my mistakes before her lawyer could use them against me. I owned my history. It was part of me, but it was not all of me. The cross-examination was as brutal as promised. Clara's defense attorney, a slick, aggressive man, came at me with everything he had. He brought up a DUI from 7 years ago. He mentioned a fight I'd gotten into outside a bar when I was 22. He read angry, drunken emails I had sent to an ex-girlfriend a decade ago. With each question, he tried to paint a picture of a man who was always on the verge of violence, a man who couldn't be trusted. "Isn't it true, Mr. Henderson, that you have a history of blackouts?" he asked, his voice dripping with insinuation. "Isn't it possible that you were, in fact, drinking during this period and simply don't remember?" I took a breath. I felt my feet on the floor. I looked directly at the jury. "No, sir," I said, my voice clear and steady. "It is not possible. I have not had a drink in 5 years, 7 months, and 12 days. I know what a hangover feels like. I know what withdrawal feels like. This was different. This was not the absence of alcohol. This was the presence of something else. This was poison." I could feel the shift in the room. The jury was looking at me, not with pity or suspicion, but with something approaching understanding. I wasn't making excuses. I was stating a fact. My history was not a weapon they could use against me anymore. It was the very thing that allowed me to know with absolute certainty that what was happening to me was not my fault. Clara did not take the stand. Her lawyer knew she would crumble under cross-examination. Her entire case rested on discrediting me. But the mountain of digital evidence was too high to climb. The text messages, the search history, the online pharmacy receipts, her own boastful posts, they told a story that no amount of character assassination could erase. In his closing argument, Marcus Cole projected the picture of the tea mug on the screen one last time. "This is not a picture of tough love," he said, his voice ringing through the silent courtroom. "This is a picture of an attempted theft, a theft of a man's health, his sanity, his legacy, and nearly his life. And she was so proud of it, she posted it on the internet for the world to see." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict came back. Guilty. Guilty on both counts, assault and reckless endangerment. A wave of relief so profound washed over me that my knees felt weak. I leaned forward, resting my forehead in my hands, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself cry. It wasn't a victory, not really. There was no joy in it. It was just the end of the lies. The sentencing happened a month later. Because she was a first-time offender, the judge was lenient. No jail time. She received 5 years of probation, a significant fine, and mandatory psychological counseling. The civil suit had already been settled, with her name permanently struck from my father's trust, and a judgment against her that she would likely be paying for the rest of her life. The restraining order was made permanent. It was, by any legal measure, a comprehensive win, but it felt hollow. In my next session with Dr. Sharma, I struggled to articulate the feeling. "She tried to destroy me," I said, the words tasting like ash. "She systematically drugged me, tried to have me committed, and she gets probation. It doesn't feel like justice." Dr. Sharma nodded. "The legal system can provide accountability," she said gently. "It can provide consequences, but it can't heal the wound of betrayal. Justice and healing are two different paths. The court's job is done. Your job, the job of healing, is just beginning." She was right. The end of the trial was not the end of the journey. In the months that followed, I began the slow, arduous process of rebuilding. I took the helm of my father's company, pouring my energy into learning the business, into honoring his legacy. The work gave me structure, a purpose that wasn't tied to the trauma. It was a way to move forward, to build something new on the foundations of what he had left me. I continued my therapy, my AA meetings, my conversations with my sponsor. I learned that recovery wasn't just about not drinking. It was about learning to live with the scars, to trust my own judgment again, to believe that I was worthy of safety and happiness. The most difficult step was dealing with my family. I had to set firm, permanent boundaries. My sister and I had a long, painful conversation, and we are slowly finding finding our way back to each other. My mother is still struggling, caught between her love for me and the guilt she feels for ever doubting me. But for the family members who had actively sided with Clara, who had called me a liar and an unstable drunk, I had to let them go. I wrote them a single, collective letter, explaining my decision. I told them I wished them well, but for my own health and sanity, I could not have them in my life. It was one of nested the hardest things I have ever done, a necessary amputation to save the rest of my life. A year after the trial, I found myself standing in front of my father's grave. The sun was warm on my face, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree nearby. I had sold the apartment I shared with Clara, purging every last trace of her from my life. I had a new place, one that I had chosen, one that felt like mine. I was sober. I was running the company. I was, for the most part, at peace. The scars were still there, of course. A faint, lingering distrust of kindness. A hyper-awareness of the shadows in people's hearts. They were a part of me now. A permanent reminder of the darkness I had walked through. I placed a fresh bouquet of my father's favorite flowers on the stone. I thought about what he would think of everything that had happened. I think he would have been horrified, but I also think he would have been proud. Proud that I didn't break. Proud that I didn't drink. Proud that I fought for myself, for the truth. Clara had seen me as a broken thing, something to be manipulated and controlled for her own gain. She had underestimated me. She had mistaken my history for my identity, my vulnerability for weakness. She never understood that the things that had almost destroyed me were the very things that gave me the strength to survive her. You don't walk through the fire of addiction and come out the other side made of glass. You come out made of steel. Standing there in the quiet peace of the cemetery, I finally felt free. The fog was gone for good. The future was mine. Well, you made it. You actually sat through all 6,700 words of that. My hat is off to you. Your attention span is truly a thing of beauty in this day and age. Honestly, I'm impressed. I started to get tired just narrating it around the part with the forensic analysis of the laptop, but you're a champion, a real marathon viewer. For your incredible dedication, the algorithm and I both thank you. And since you're clearly the kind of person who commits, who sees things through to the very end, how about you commit to hitting that subscribe button? It's right there. Go on, you've earned it.